So depression is something that many people grapple with. Probably everyone does at some point in their life. Mental health in general, though, is something that's of fairly recent concern. I mean, nowadays, everyone seems to be talking about it. But this was not the case 20 years ago, or for much of human history for that matter. I mean, mental illness in the ancient world was often attributed to supernatural causes. Then in between the 16th and 19th centuries, we had some leaders and small movements of people that tried to shift to the perspective on mental illness and treat it more like a medical condition. The National Institute of Mental Health was established in 1949, and I would argue that it hasn't really been something in the mainstream consciousness until fairly recently, the past few years or so. But God has imbued humans with emotions since the beginning, since our creation. So how does the Bible approach something like depression? How are we supposed to feel about depression as Christians? And what does the Bible have to say? Let's take a look.
Attention, bargain shoppers.
So, depression. There are two things I would comment on right off the bat. First, depression is a very specific feeling. I would differentiate it from just general sadness or anxiety. I've heard it said once that anxiety lives in the future, but depression lives in the past. So for the purposes of this video, we're going to be looking at depression through the lens of sadness about the past, loss of a loved one, regret, dwelling on what was. And secondly, it's really easy to be dismissive of these feelings. One might be tempted to take a verse like Isaiah 41:10, which reads, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God." Now, you may read a verse like this and get down on yourself if you're feeling dismayed. Or someone may have even told you at one point that it's a sin to feel sad, to not be joyous. Cheer up. God is with you. And there is an element of that. Yes, God is with us. But knowing that intellectually and processing those feelings and working through your depression on an emotional level are two different things. So in regards to depression, sorrow of things in the past, I would look at Ecclesiastes 7:10, which tells us, "Do not say, 'Why were the old days better than these?' For it is not wise to ask such questions." See, even thousands of years ago when this was written, it was tempting to look at the past. But this is not something God wants us to do. There's an interesting and maybe even a little bit of a weird story in the book of Genesis. There are these two cities known for their sin and for their depravity, and God is going to destroy them. However, Lot and his family are righteous people, and God is going to spare them. But they need to leave the city and not look back. God says in Genesis 19:17, "Flee for your lives, don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away." But then we're told in Genesis 19:26, "But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt." So there's a clear message here, although it might be lost on some of us in the modern audience. See, today we view salt as a spice, something that we find in the back of our cabinet. But back in the ancient world, salt was important as a preservative. In a time before refrigerators, it kept food around for a long time. See, Lot's wife had been allowed to flee Sodom and Gomorrah, to go to a better place. But if she was harboring in her heart, if she was preserving in her heart that love of the past, that love of the sin, of the depravity, then the old wickedness God destroyed would just continue on in her. It would have gone with her and spread throughout the new community. So she looked back and it destroyed her. And we do this too to ourselves every time we look back in that way, every time we look back with longing. I know it can be hard, but it is God's desire for us to continually be looking forward. We see in Psalm 96:1, "Sing to the Lord a new song, sing to the Lord of all the earth." A similar verse is Psalm 98:1, which says, "Sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm have worked salvation for him." It's important to sing a new song to the Lord because he is moving today. No matter how hard we try, we cannot go backwards. Say you're with a friend and you go on a trip and you have a blast. Then later you try to recreate the experience. You take the same trip to the same destination with the same friend. You do the same things, but you can't recreate the experience. You can have new experiences, which may be just as fun or fulfilling, feeling, but when you try to recapture what's been lost, you can't. This is true with people, with relationships, with events, with circumstances. It can never be how it was. But that's okay, because God's desire is for us to follow Him, to look forward, to not dwell on the past and on things we cannot change. It's not easy, it's not a quick fix, but it's how the Bible teaches us to address depression, to be singing a new song to the Lord. But what do you think? I'd love to hear from you below. Please feel free to leave a comment. Also, like and subscribe. It does help out the channel. I'll leave the verses used today in the description. My name is Adam. This is Bargain Bin Theology, and remember, you get what you pay for.